Welcome back to another episode of Planet Zoo, Hertfordshire Zoo edition. In the last episode we built the fox barn for the red foxes, and today in this square we're going to be building the badgers enclosure. The next episode is the red deer and the European deer, and then finally the wolves in that larger square to the right. So we're just going to start by moving this back and then we'll get into the build. So like and subscribe, thanks for watching, see you again soon. Okay, so introduction done on our third lovely animal of the European zone, or the haunted castle area, I'm not too sure. So I started off by placing in the area in which the badgers will go to bed. That's the little, I can't even remember what it's called, it's a little hole that is pre-built by planetzoo. So I took advantage of that by not having some hard cover or hard terrain, by placing in the terrain above it and putting in these wall panels. And my idea behind this was like a little Hobbits Hole, as if they'd come out of the Shire, because I was originally going to build their Sett in the middle of the enclosure. However, I thought that was quite similar to the lynx, so I didn't want to do that. Oops, I just punched my desk. So yeah, I didn't want to do that, so I added in this terrain and moved it, put in these panels so that it looked as if they'd come out of a house, maybe an abandoned house. I don't know what the story is, but they've come out of this house and that's where they live. Kind of like, is it the fox? It's not the Fox and the Hound. There's a program, Wind in the Willows, if any of you have watched that. Probably not, it's a very old movie, but if you've seen Wind in the Willows, then that's kind of what it reminds me of. And I put in these windows, which I remembered from last time, actually light up at night, as if they were at home. Yeah, I actually really like the way that this came out. Added in these shutters with some of these latches to make it seem, I guess, a bit more realistic. I don't really know what I was going with for that, honestly, but I think it came out okay. I then added in these rocks as if they were broken, like cobblestone footpaths, because you don't really have that option. So, you know, like they come out of their home and that's the way that they walk. I don't really know why I went down this path, but I did, and I enjoyed it. I actually really enjoyed this build. It's a really interesting build, if you ask me. It's different to something that I've done previously. And to create the fence around the outside to stop guests coming in, I have got these standard wood logs with some liana vines, I think that's the name of them, and I just rotated it. I then cover the entirety of this mound in bracken, because if you ask me, if you're out in the forest, you'd see some big mossy areas and big leafy areas, and there's not really anything that kind of covers that as well as bracken, I don't think. You could argue that moss does, but I don't think moss looks very good in this game. I don't think the texture is very good. I also think you'd have a lot of nettles laying around, some bracken, some broken trees, etc., and maybe some plants. So I added in some colour so that it wasn't just green. And I've done this by adding in these azalea plants and some bushes, but I think they actually end up coming out because I don't think the badgers like them. And then I added in some foxgloves in yellow, pink and white. I've then done the similar to what I'd done with the lynx by adding in these saltworts to come through the wood, and against the wood I've also put in these crowberry bushes just to make it seem a bit more hidden, and put in these golden rods, and I do end up putting in some other plants. I think it's mainly roses, I want to say. Yeah, so in go some different size rose bushes, especially around the outside, because I remembered that I hadn't actually paid any attention to the back end, but I don't think that mattered too much ultimately. I think it's just me being a perfectionist. Well, I'm not a perfectionist, but me being a bit of a perfectionist. Then I added in this glass. Don't know why I added in glass. I should have just done the wood like I have done. And I didn't quite like the way that it came out to the corners and kind of merged with the glass like that. So I ended up completing this with some periwinkle leaves on both sides, added in climb proof, of course, because I'm not too sure if they can climb. I then selected a lot more of it and added wood to that, just because I think it looked a lot better. Putting in some rocks at the top, because it wouldn't just be a set, you would have some sort of rock cover somewhere. And as you can see, this is me now putting in the rest of the wood. I do get rid of the glass and straighten it up in the end, just to make it look a bit better than what it was. It wasn't quite coming out the way I wanted it, so I had to delete it again and again and again until I got to a point where I was happy. I then added in some wood beams above and below, just to make it kind of tie in with the rest of the wood. And I didn't like how it just randomly was there, so I rotated those to make it look as if it was part of the build itself. And then added in some more nettles, because you can't go wrong with nettles. And some more bracken around the outside, because I wanted to not really have too much going on in the middle. Added in the staff entrance and pretty much finished up there with the leaves around the outside. Added in this rock formation with the moss, because I think the moss coming through the rocks looks legit, looks decent, just not when it's by itself. Copy and pasted that because I really liked the way it came out, and then I had to decide on which tree I wanted to be the focal point of, and I couldn't find one that was small enough but big enough until I found this London plane tree, and I really liked it, but I decided to swap out for the willow tree. Of course, following on from the last build, we go with some more poppies. Just finished off making this look nice as well, because that looked a bit rubbish, but we went in with some poppies, the rest of the rocks to make it not boring across the landscape, and everything else. And this is the finished product.